3 albums into our journey, we make it to Caress of Steel. This is interesting on many levels. First of all, we have to start with the album cover. We have to start with the fact that Rush, for the second time in 3 albums, experienced an album cover blunder, where the color of what you see right in the middle, in the circular middle of the album cover, is the wrong color. It looks more bronze or copper, when in reality it was supposed to be more of a steely color, so more of a grayish-white scale as opposed to what they got. Either way, I kind of dig what they have, so it's whatever. But this was also the album that was supposed to be Rush's breakout. This was supposed to be the album that pushed Rush completely and totally over the top. They had great momentum going into this record thanks to their self-titled debut, as well as Fly By Night, where it seemed that they were primed for this. And it didn't happen, and there's many reasons why this didn't happen. This is not an album that was universally beloved whenever it was first released, and it was one that was actually critically panned pretty hard for a couple of different reasons. They panned it based around the fact that it didn't seem like a very focused release, and they panned it because of tracks 4 and 5 on this 5-track album. And actually, whenever you get into the 2 tracks that they panned, they're panning roughly 32 minutes of this record, or about, 80% of it. Yeah, we're talking about The Necromancer, we're talking about the Fountains of Lambda. We're talking about those 2 tracks, which are back-to-back, tracks 4 and track 5 on this record. And remember, whenever this was issued on wax, that meant that The Necromancer was on one side, meanwhile the Fountain of Lambda took up the entire second side. So it's a little bit different than it would be today, where you're going to get these bam bam off of a CD. Is it really all of that bad, though? Is it really all of that bad, where something that seems so trivial could actually cause that kind of damage? Well, let's talk about a couple of the other tracks on the album, the other 3 first, before we get into the last 2. I mean, Bastille Day right there is kind of worth the price of admission by itself, because it still maintains some of those Led Zeppelinisms that the band had with their earliest versions, especially on their eponymous debut album. And it's one that you could definitely see where if Rush just decided to be a Led Zeppelin-style band from Canada, they probably would have still ended up having a terrific career. It probably would have been very, very different than what we got, but they just know how to write. They just really knew how to write in that style, and it was something that was still evident with Bastille Day. I Think I'm Going Bald is an interesting little number. It's based off of a story that's within the band, and a couple of legends to go along with it, and it's just a strange little number. It's kind of curious. It's a fun little song, but it's not one that's really, I think, worth a lot of mention. And then you get the Lakeside Park, which mentions some holiday of Canadian origin. I believe Victoria Day is the holiday. It's May the 24th. And I really like this track along with Bastille Day. I feel that they were very, very well written, very focused, and had a real purpose to it. I'm not a huge fan of I Think I'm Going Bald, but I don't think it's a terrible track. So then we get into the meat and potatoes, the meat of this order. We have the number 3 hitter, if for all of you baseball fans, we have the Necromancer, and then we have the cleanup hitter in the Fountains of Lambda. And I have to agree with the reviewers. I have to agree with the people that panned this in 1975. This was overly ambitious. I definitely give them that, and I give them a lot of credit for it, Rush, that is. And at times it can feel a little bit jilty, but the reason why it feels a little bit jilty is because of the sudden breaks. The sudden breaks separate each individual portion of the song almost as though you're listening to a classical piece or a symphony. And that can be jilty to a lot of listeners. That can really turn a lot of listeners off, considering it doesn't have that seamless flow of one consistent song. But Rush was going for a pretty new and pretty different style that was really picking up a lot of slack. I mean, you heard bands like Yes accomplish this task with seamless ease, and it became kind of an obsession of a lot of groups in the 70s, whenever prog rock was first really getting started. And if you hear the seamlessness even of the Genesis works that combined, and I'm talking songs like Supper's Ready, then you can definitely see what I'm saying. The breaks are not as pronounced as they are on some of these songs, but these were their first two attempts at writing long-scale opuses like this. Now, The Necromancer features the return of By-Tor the Snow Dog and really has this feel of a short story, high fantasy that the band attempted to write, and really, to be fair, they did their best. The voiceovers definitely helped to narrate, and the music around it is just, it's well done. I mean, you cannot you can't say anything negative about the music. It's all very musically well constructed, but it is a little jilty. Same thing with the Fountains of Lambda. This is a track that's all about the cycle of man. It's all about a man's life going from birth all the way up until death, and this is once again something that's very well done, and you may notice a curious little riff in this song that reminds you of something that I think Dream Theater covered, so definitely be on the lookout and listen for that. But these are two tracks that don't really need to be back to back. I actually have to really agree with that, because it becomes a very, very large trial. It becomes a bit of a struggle to get through it, and you know, these are great first attempts, but we know within knowing the Rush discography that better things were coming, and that they would become a lot more focused and just really well done. I mean, these are two great songs that were great attempts, but whenever it comes to really delivering the magic, these fall a little short. I do like both of these songs, and I feel that they have a lot to offer, and really whenever you consider the remainder of the Rush discography, both of these tracks have their place in legend for good reason. However, it's just not quite on the same level. Caress of Steel just feels like an album that they put a lot into, and they did what they could, but ended up being a bit of a bust based around a little bit of overambition. Perhaps this was something where with 2112, which we will be discussing next, they really were able to figure out how to do this kind of an album. And the funny part about it is that they did that album in that style against the wishes of their label. The label didn't want anything to do with an album like this after the disappointment of Caress of Steel, so it does have a bit of a legend behind it as well. Basically, the fact is that Rush decided that fuck it, we're just going to do it again, and we're going to get it right this time, and to hell with what they say, and we end up with 2112, which we will be speaking about next, which of course lives in infamy and is considered to be one of the greatest albums of all time. But what did you guys think of Caress of Steel, all of you Rush fans out there? Is this an underrated gem, or is this one where it's all of the criticism and the like that it received seems valid? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to join me next time for 2112. That's going to be coming up next.